it's all very much about the heart. Like all the transformation of chi happens in the heart. It doesn't happen in the head, right? It happens in the heart.
Yeah.
Right. So again, we're back to this idea that it's this desire, and it's also what Whitehead talked about. Like
So
each point in space desires an outcome, right? Which is why everything is animated and everything has a will, has a desire towards something. And so desire, which also resides in the heart, is also what's described as the heart is the place of transformation.
Amen, brother.
Right.
I tell you what.
So now we can go back to Chi and Taoism.
My partner Laura, she, I hear her saying this, this brief little story from Sufism, from Sufi poetry, which is that God made the rocks and was like, nice, shiny, sometimes, sparkly even, very pretty, very pretty. I'm going to make more, though. God made the plants. It's like green, beautiful. Mm-hmm. Some of them taste good and sweet, and some of them, it's good for medicine. Just like, I'm just going to keep going, though. We're on a roll here. Yeah. Okay, animals. Or even, fish, 4-leggeds, right?
Yep.
Cute, fuzzy, cute little sounds.
Adorable. Yeah.
Beautiful. Some of them have feathers. Still not it. It's not quite it. So I don't mean to paint. Here's the interesting thing: is I don't mean to paint an anthropocentric story here. But that is the implication. So we're just going to go with it. It's actually inherent in all of it. Yeah. It's actually inherent in the whole story. But we'll just go with it. And that is that God made mankind, humankind, and says, "This is how I will know myself." Mm-hmm. So the very point of creation is the desire to connect with the source from which you came.
Yes.
Right.
Well, the one thing that makes us different from the rest of creation, essentially, is the fact that we can observe ourselves experiencing creation, whereas an animal is just experiencing it.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean
we
by
can
that?
have our consciousness of going, ooh, I am now desiring this jelly donut.
Metacognition, in other words.
So that we're conscious of our own
thinking about thinking.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that makes us different.
You know what's funny though? Yeah. I think that your cat, and by your cat I mean my cat.
Yes.
And your cat. Our cats. They that metacognitive thing is probably more akin to the very thing in the mind, in the human mind, which we know to be most troublesome in life. It's what creates, for gross lack of a better word, ego.
Yes. Seriousness.
Taking this whole ride way too seriously. Mm-hmm. Whereas your cat may not necessarily know, like, I have a bank account. Yeah. But I bet you they experience the effects of their desire manifesting the thing in their life which they...
Yeah.
Right? So it's the baby chick experiment where they put the random number generator on the Roomba. Mm-hmm. Okay, they put a random number generator on a Roomba. And so for anybody listening to this who's not familiar with the random number generator experiments, this is a Stanford series of experiments that's been ongoing for decades. I don't know how long, decades now, where they find that any event of collective focused awareness, attention from humans are their subjects. This is what's cool about it. Humans are their subjects, and so the O.J. Simpson chase or Princess Diana's funeral and stuff like this, where you have incredibly large numbers of people's attention focused on the same object, i.e. their television in this case. These random number generators that are placed around the planet, they deviate from random. They're no longer random. Yeah. And there's all kinds of ways that they've been able to mess with this, all kinds of ways. You can even have a person sit in front of one of these RNGs, random number generators. You have a person sit in front of one of them, and what the machine is doing is it's averaging zeros or ones over a certain time interval, and whenever it moves to zeros or ones being dominant over a certain time interval, it'll either light a red light or a green light, right? So it's randomly going red, green, green, red, green. And you can have a person sit in front of it and you can say, make it go green. And they go, and it goes green. Yeah. So
But talk about the chicks, because that's
the
a
chicks,
cool.
isn't it good?
That's
isn't
a
it
great
good?
experiment.
It's
There's a Roomba in a room.
There's a Roomba in a room, and it's got a random number generator on this in this arena, and the random number generator is programmed to the mechanisms in the Roomba to determine where it's turning. So at a certain time interval, whether it's zeros or ones or whatever, it will go left or it will go right at a certain time interval. So it goes this until the random number changes again. It goes right, goes left again, goes right again, goes left. And so it's just doing it randomly. If you look at it over time, it looks like a random thing. You put chicks in there, baby chicks.
We're talking about young chickens, not young women.
Not young women.
Because that would be a very different experiment.
Yes. And so you do the baby chicks with the Roomba, random number generator Roomba thing. And the Roomba's still doing its thing. But it's got baby chicks imprinted on it now. It's like baby chicks are following around this Roomba. And what they do is after the imprinting happens, and the baby chicks think this Roomba is mommy, you separate the chicks out with a glass pane so they can see the arena with the Roomba. And they're all with their faces against the glass like mommy, mommy, mommy. The Roomba then spends 50% of its time on the side of the room where the baby chicks are.
Instead of randomly going through
the baby chicks' intention to be closer to their mother manipulates the random number generator that's determining the Roomba's movement.
Yeah.
So we talk about it being... So it's not anthropocentric. It's not anthropocentric in any way. It's desire.
Correct. And anyway, we can see how there's a gradation of intellect, of self-awareness throughout the animal world. So it's not like we're exceptional and we're not the only ones who can, self-reflect. So we're at the tip of evolution in terms of self-awareness, but we're not alone. It's not like ex nihilo creation. Suddenly we have self-awareness and nobody else has it. Again, it's a gradation of all of that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
But again, it's desire which is the motivating factor. It's those baby chicks had a desire for an outcome. They wanted mom to come back to them.
A desire for an outcome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I keep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think desire just seems to be the best descriptor of that, as opposed to will or lust or whatever it is.
I agree with you completely. Absolutely.
It's a desire for an outcome, desire for something to happen, whether it's a tree desiring even water or whatever.
What's even better is that the most powerful form of desire is the desire which is in alignment with the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So if the heart's nature is stillness, as it said in Taoist alchemy, and that the movement of this still point in our center, which is our heart, the movement of the heart is called mind.
Yes.
Right. So there's this. That's why in the New right, they call it that's Old Testament. They call it a still small voice.
Mm-hmm.
Christians also refer to it as not your heart, as in. There's other places in the New and Old Testament where your heart is referred to as this kind of fickle emotional thing, which and in Chinese medicine too, the heart is it's subject to its emotions, right? They say that in the Tao Te Ching, they say that the flavors dull the tastes, and the colors dull the vision, right? So there's that heart, which is this heart, this kind of like for lack of a better word, like feeble emotionality.
Yeah.
And then there's a different kind of emotionality, which is all arises from a deep desire to connect, the will to connect, and to love, and to be free, which has its root in a kind of stillness, a kind of unity.
Yeah.
That's the desire, which is most powerful. So you can sit there and you can do your sigils and things. It doesn't have to do with the sigil. It doesn't have to do with the incantation. It doesn't have to do with the manifestation. How people are doing the water trick, the manifestation, like you imprint one energy on and then you do this one, and then you transform it and you drink it, and it's like, that's powerful shit. But what's most powerful about it is That's like your New Age manifestation techniques. What's most powerful about them is your belief about what's happening, allowing you to truly feel the desire which is in you to have or be the thing.
Yeah, because again, it's this dual nature of the heart, which has both this internal aspect and, in a way, external. The external aspect being the emotions that are there, that are shaking your chi, all the channels are.
That's right.
And then you have
Chinese medicine.
Yeah, and then you have the internal aspect of the heart, which is what you're talking about, which is more the quiet aspect.
Fantastic.
Which is actually connecting to, if we go back to our black holes at the center of everything, the heart, in a way, is the organ which is most connected to this this field
I love it.
that encompasses everything.
Amen, brother. So there's this, I was mind mapping this stuff.
Yin and yang, by the way, of the heart. The yin aspect being the more emotional, kind of connected to the body, and the yang aspect being connected inwards. And
yin is manifest. It has substance and materiality. It's core. It's central.
Again, this this gradation between manifested and unmanifested. The earth and heaven, like this gradation that exists in everything. That's sorry. Go ahead.
Well, there's I've mind mapped a lot of this stuff. I'm so surprised I didn't pull it out and show it to you. My mind map. My mind map. Yes. So the mind map. One of the conclusions I came to was this Taoist alchemical language of the heart as the center, and the center as everywhere and nowhere. The center as kind of the everywhereness and nowhereness as indicative of the kind of quantum flux foam, the 0-point energy field, the ether, whatever, this field of all possible information. The heart is the center is everywhere and nowhere. The center also, as in Nassim Haramein's theories, necessary for the creation of any field. So the center of every proton is a singularity which informs everything about it, which is at the center of everything, of every atom, which informs the creation of all reality from one thing, one point, which is everywhere.
Yeah.
So you have linguistically a kind of you can use the transitive property where you are equating the singularity at the center of every proton to the very thing which we're talking about.
Yeah.
When we do this.
Yeah.
When we say our heart.
Yeah.
Our heart of hearts. This yin, this internal, this core aspect of our being, our center, is also the same thing as this wormhole from the field informing the creation of everything at every moment.
And what's interesting is that we're talking about the heart and not the mind. Because it's a very Western thing to, think that the mind is is the most important part, like the brain and what the brain does, and thinking is so important, like will as opposed to desire, right? That will is the but in Chinese medicine and basically Taoist alchemy, the mind is less important than the heart, because the heart is where the real stuff happens. What's interesting though in martial arts, there's an inverse of that, because the yi guides the chi, so the mind, the intent guides the chi.
Yeah.
So there you have an inversion of all of this. We're saying no, it's not the heart, it's the mind. The training in martial art, in internal martial art, is actually to quiet the heart,
right?
Because there's still this assumption that a heart which is imbalance, which is being triggered by emotions, is also then disrupting the flow of chi. But then your mind is supposed to be interacting with the chi and guiding it. But there's an interesting practice where, if you want to use chi as a way, like in a martial way, meaning instead of using force, you use chi. So if I want to make you fall, right, I have two options. I can twist your arm and make you fall, or I can influence your chi Like send my chi into your body so that my chi now overcomes yours and tells you to fall down. Right? That's the highest level of these internal martial arts, right? So where literally now you're using energy to overcome your opponent. Or because what you're doing is you're sending the message, down. And then your body goes, oh, okay, and then falls down, right? Because you're overwriting the message, right? So again, we're talking about information.
Through intention. Yes, information.
But
you're intending that
here's the thing.
Be the case.
The only way it works is if you train yourself to not pay attention to the point of contact.
Aha.
Right?
Yes.
So your mind has to be further than the point of contact, because you have to have some, usually some point of contact.
Oh, wow,
like somebody grabs your arm.
Yeah.
And if you want to make them fall through this contact, you don't think about the place where they're holding you. You go, okay, you put your mind in your finger, or you put your mind in their foot, not the point of contact. Because the minute your mind is on the point of contact, in a way,
you're compressed, limited.
Yeah, you've gelled, you've sent the chi to the point of contact instead of...
This is what exists.
Yeah, exactly. You're saying, pay attention to this now is, right? This is real, as opposed to going, oh no, I'm down.
Something else entirely is going on here.
Yeah.
We're not even here. This isn't solid. So
that's it. It's like, how does that work?
Well, what it makes me think of, what I love the most about this conversation is that we're getting to the nature of the heart. We're getting to, this still small voice that's calling out to us, and it's a whisper. It calls out to us when we train the ability, and that's tough, because it's not as if we're obligated to do this. The spiritual path is the spiritual path, period. But when we train ourselves to listen to this whisper, we realize that our desires is not the same thing as our lusts for this object, which we want to do, whatever quantum manifestational or whatever kind of magical practice, or just or even pray to God in a transactional fashion that this be the case. Yeah. Please, God, I'll do anything. Yeah. People have really crazy experiences because they can go really deep into that experience. I will, and God delivers, and it's always a deeply transformational thing when people are in that level of despair. Despair, separation from their identity, disidentification with that which they actually are, which is divine and infinite and eternal. Yeah. This core of us, the center of us, which is the reason why we're here, informing all of our being and all of our lives. But what I love about this is the paradox that James Rodriguez, who's a manifestational master teacher, he's one of my absolute favorite personalities on YouTube, James Rodriguez with an S, has studied this early 20th century New Thought material like Napoleon Hill and Neville Goddard extensively, and one of the ways that he formulates the secret, because Neville Goddard wrote "Feeling is the secret." It was feeling. Well, what are we feeling? We can feel lusty for that thing, and something may happen, but it's different from listening to the still small voice. This what we actually deeply desire, not in shadow, not in the sense of I am somehow separate from this thing which I desire, but I am all here, all now. I am whole, and coming from that place of light and allowing the light to shine through. Everything is manifest in its fullest aspect from that point. James Rodriguez says that the secret to manifestation is simultaneous burning desire on the one hand and detachment from outcome. Simultaneously. Yeah. Burning desire and detachment from what they call it lust of result. Of result. So detachment from the result and burning desire for that thing simultaneously. So what is that? Is that not, if you're not detached, then if you are detached from the outcome, and yet you've got this burning desire, what is that, man? What is it that's speaking through you? You can just live and let the desire flow. Yeah. And all these stories of the Hindu mystics who could manifest gold from their hands and all that kind of stuff. But the thing was that's
always,
fancy.
Yeah. But the thing was always that by the time you get to the point where you can manifest whatever you want, you don't want anything.
Exactly. What is siddhi translated as? A siddhi, these mystical powers that you get from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras of the ability to levitate, telepathy, all this kind of stuff. You can fly. People are like, oh, that sounds really juicy and fun. A siddhi is translated as a distraction.
Yes. Same in Buddhism, where in Zen Buddhism, there's like all these teachings like, you're going to meditate for hours and hours and hours. At some point, you're going to have some weird powers. As a matter of fact, even in Taoist meditation has the exact same thing. Where there's literally warnings. Like, at some point, you might be able to read other people's thoughts. You might have premonitions. You might have, these strange powers. And they say, don't worry about it. Don't focus about it.
Yeah.
They're just side effects. Keep on with your meditation. Keep doing them, because all this other stuff, these powers that develop out of these deep meditations, they don't matter. It's not important.
That's right.
Because what's more important is the meditation. But they mention it. Like, there's all these different cultures that, once again, they have these deep meditative practices.
This is really interesting because...
And they all mention the same thing.
Yes, they do. I mean, this is the essence of mystical spirituality, is that everybody's saying the same thing. With different languages and different metaphysics.
But they all have the same kind of signposts along the way.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Where they're all kind of pointing out to these things. Like, for example, you're going to have magical powers. Don't worry about it and don't focus about it. It doesn't matter.
This is so interesting where... And I do think that those powers invite you to consider the places in yourself which you come from in shadow, and through stories of separation, out of unity, out of a sense of unity with all that is, instead of in right. Anyway, so like, oh God, that's interesting, because I might see those siddhis or powers or the ability to levitate or whatever. Those are only distractions, insofar as you see yourself as separate.
Yes.
So, if you're having a conversation and you feel those synchronicities flowing, and you feel that telepathy, you're like, yeah, I know. That, right? The extent to which you see yourself as separate from this person, for people who are coming from that place of shadow, or who have that fear in them, the desire to overcome or to control or to abuse or to have power over rather than power with, the extent to which you don't see those things as a blessing, and the mystical and magical way in which reality is so constructed as to be constantly coming into deeper and deeper, more coherent, so to speak, relationship with itself. It's a beautiful thing. So I don't see those effects that we have as distractions or anything, in so much as I think that that's one of those cultural stories of people are fucked up.
Yeah.
And so if you have the ability to levitate, you may use it for the wrong reasons. That's not the point. It's not saying that it's still not the point. The ability to levitate and the telepathy, there's still side effects.
Yeah.
And it's still not the point. But I wouldn't say ignore them either. Don't ignore 11:11 on the clock.
Yeah, correct. There's signposts. There's signposts that you're on the right path, that you're doing the right thing. But there's a ton of stories in China of like bad monks, and the whole point is that these are people who have gone through the training, have reached that point where now they essentially have superpowers, and got stuck there.
Right.
And
rather than experiencing unity.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of continuing on the path, they get stuck there, and now they turn to evil because now they have these powers.
Exactly.
So, and there's tons of stories like that. It's one of the classic villains in all of these kind of martial art movies and stories, is the monk who turns bad, but who has these abilities because he went through all the training and stopped.
Because they see themselves as separate from their fellow anything, from reality itself.
Correct.
And why? And manifestationally speaking, that's cruising for a bruising, is it not? This is why black magic ain't the way.
Yes, correct, because
right?
it will bite you in the ass.
To the extent to which you see yourself as separate, and then think that your desire to have the thing, lust, to have the thing which you perceive as separate from you, that separation is you're pulling the arrow back, so to speak, right? You're pulling back the slingshot of the point at which you will, at some point, this vibrational discrepancy will someday, in the course of the reality that you are creating, your higher self, your heart will create for you an experience that will ask you very seriously to choose again your path.
Yeah.
What do you identify with? This is what the heart is doing. This is what the still small voice is constantly calling us. Who are you?
Yeah. So let's go back a bit, though, because I still want to address this question.
I don't want to.
Not too bad.
Okay.
My desire for the answer overcomes your reluctance.
Battle of wills? Yes. Is that what we call this?
No.
Let's do
it. So this duality between the chi being governed, well, not governed, processed by the heart, but the will also have an influence on it. So, because the question becomes, are we talking about the same chi? Right? Or is there a difference? Is this, again, a place where we're using the same words because we're ignorant Westerners? But that somebody who, a deep practitioner in acupuncture, or whatever it is, would know that those chi that we're talking about are actually two different, they have a different nature. Right?
What are these two chis then?
So,
because the chi that I know of both in Chinese medicine and in Taoist alchemy are chi, so to speak, and source chi or yuan chi.
So I'm thinking now of the chi that is manifested in the martial arts, where now the mind, the will, the intent is guiding a form of chi, and that's what's used to listen, to overcome your opponent. Like, this is what the whole point of the martial arts training.
We call that yi, huh? Yi. The intention.
Yeah, intention, exactly. Right. So it's to now go, okay, we have this system, this natural system of chi flowing through the body, and now we're going to use the mind to then expand that and use it to overcome somebody.
So that versus what?
That, what do you mean? That, which was that?
What? The chi is there in some sense a deeper chi, a deeper kind of connection, a deeper kind of expression happening
or because it seems to me that the chi that is being mentioned in so the one that's connected to the heart is the chi that is feeding the body in a way, right? And in a way is connecting to the soul, right? To the Shen spirit.
Sure.
As opposed to the chi used in the martial arts, which doesn't seem to have the same connection. It seems to be much more of this information. Like, for example, what I mentioned before, like I can reach through, and send my intent through chi into your body to make you fall, because what I've done, in a way, I've sent information which has overwritten your information. I've sent the message drop, and your body goes, oh, okay.
This is a really I'm going to answer this in kind of a hyperbolic way, which is that the martial arts move and all that kind of thing, well, yeah, it wouldn't work the way it works unless God willed it. And what I mean by that is that the mechanism, so to speak, the way, the means by which this kind of more linear, perhaps, expression of like the way in which things are connected, the relationships between things, the information that connects all things. We somehow dance in that field. We play in that field. But, like we were just alluding to there's a way in which what goes around comes around. And so the same thing kind of goes even at the deeper level of the surface expression of the chi that's used in martial arts. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that's what I'm describing is a hint as to the complicated nature of chi. That again,
I'm making a case that it's all the same chi. You know.
Yeah,
and
I think it's for me. It's more a. Again, there's a spectrum. I mean, saying it's on a spectrum is kind of a cop out. But this idea, that, like,
yes,
in a way,
yes,
it's like there's a different thickness, right? And same with the Jing turns into Qi and Jing are related.
Sure.
Right.
And in Taoist alchemy, you actually take one, transmute it into breath, and transmute that into spirit.
So
to return to the
so
source.
It's almost like if you pick a different point between that transformation, you have a different type of chi, right? And maybe it's playing with these different moments, these different qualities of chi. That's what's really happening, because a lot of the practice in internal martial art is actually about bringing mind and chi and body into coherence, right? There's a big emphasis on, for example, in the Taichi classics, they talk about if one part of the body moves, the entire body moves. Right, this idea that everything is unified. So mind and body and chi are acting in a single unit. So there's no separation between the three. So Jing, Qi, and Shen are unified.
Absolutely.
And it's that unification that then allows you to send your chi into your opponent. So is it a case of the fact that through practice you've refined the chi that you're using is the more refined chi, the chi that's between Qi and Shen, as opposed to the chi that's between Qi and Jing?
Is it possible that this otherwise martial act could be an expression of your deep desire?
Yeah.
I mean, I love this because I love this because we're dancing also on the edges of like ethics.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And what?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, martial arts deals with that sometimes.
Yes.
Right. So not only are we dancing on the edge of like ethics, but also the inexplicability from a non-dual perspective of what ethics is, and the fact that the yin and yang of good and evil dissolve into the Tao. Yes. And that's where we throw our hands up and say, like I said, if God wills it.
Yeah.
So to speak. Right?
Yeah. It's still a bit of a cop-out. Because here's why. In the internal martial arts tradition, there are specific exercises that you should do in order to get to the point where your chi has now become fluid enough that it can go beyond the boundaries of your skin. Right? And a lot of it has to do essentially with transforming or removing tension, removing blockages within the tissue so that the tissue becomes so soft, so unresisting that the chi can flow. Right? So there is a physical...
So yin, that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a physical aspect to it. Like in order to create this more fluid chi, you need to work on the body. Right? So it's not mind. It's not like, develop your will until you're strong. Your will is strong.
They're not separate.
Yeah, exactly.
If your intention, if that's what your intention is, it's going to happen.
So, but you're transforming.
Not that there's not a methodology in doing so.
But you're transforming the physical characteristics of your body in order to then achieve a different type of chi.
Chicken or egg? Because Xing and Ming, the cultivation of the physical nature and the spiritual nature, the life, the light of the life, and then the vessel which the life inhabits.
Yeah.
Xing and Ming, this classic dichotomy in Taoist alchemy and martial arts and stuff. It's dual. I mean, it's a binary system.
It's a binary system. As a matter of fact, one of Yang Ruchen's sons, so the guy who created the Yangzhou Taichi, talks about how you have to train both the martial and the civil. And here the civil is basically internal aspect, meditation, qigong, and all that kind of stuff. But you have to do both, because if you only do one, you're missing out on what the other side is bringing you, the skills that you learn from the other side. So you have to do both at once, otherwise it doesn't work. So that's another really interesting idea. That you have to do both, that you can't separate them. You can't have a purely internal practice. Your internal practice eventually becomes a physical practice. It becomes an external practice, and vice versa. Right? So it's everything is connected, basically.
It's not even just the 1, 2, and the 3 that are unified, Jing, Qi, and Shen, but Yin and Yang cannot exist without each other in this manifest world that we've chosen to take form in.
Yes.
We come here to experience this contrast.
Come from where, though? Fifth dimension. See?
And
it all goes back to the fifth dimension.
Is that Bruce Willis?
No, fifth element is what you're thinking of.
Oh, damn.
Close. See, fifth element is love, though. That's what we're talking about. Desire.
See, told you.
I don't know.
In the Taoist alchemical sense, we would say like prior heaven, like the unmanifest.
Yes. Yeah.
From heaven. I mean, like it's funny, like when they say, you know, in Chinese cosmology, they have the heaven prior to heaven, and then our manifest heaven, which is like the sky, and so the kind of macrocosmic expression of the sky as we experience as the microcosm is some kind of ethereal dimension, which they call is it Shoutian? Is it? I'm not sure, but it's the prior heaven. It's the heaven prior to this heaven prior. In other words, it precedes all of this. Yeah. And so there. In other words, that's where we come from. And so it's the same thing as what we call in the Western world heaven. We come from the experience. From the experience. People have near-death experiences where they see all this stuff as exactly the phenomenology of the near-death experience is very real to me, at least. I mean, I feel very, very good about the information that people bring back, the anecdotal stuff, and of course, no two of them overlap. Why would they? Yeah. You know, and so that's where we come from. Duh, Chris, come on.
But again, that place that we come from is the unified field that organizes everything. The fifth dimension of desire, essentially, of being in this, wanting to be, desire to be.
We've heard in spiritual parlance and stuff like that we are the universe experiencing itself, or God wanting to know itself through us, right? Yep. That's all so entirely true. Mm-hmm. It's not just these, what's the word? You know, it's not just these little quips on the nature of things. It is the deep reality of what's actually happening here.
What's interesting, though, is that Taoist alchemy shows us that it's not just a philosophical concept. It's a physical reality. It's a way in which our physical reality is being organized.
Yep.
And so there's a direct link between why we look the way we are, why we are the way we are, and this kind of this other realm, this pre-heaven, because it's all the same. It's all continuum. Again, this
absolutely. No, it's true. It can be a continuum. I can go from here to here. Yeah. I can also go from here to here, and I can bend it, and I can make it a circle, and then I can compress the whole thing so that it's one thing. It's just because it's a continuum doesn't mean that. Yeah. You got Zeno's paradox in there too. You can't divide up any 2 points in it and actually expect this point to be different from this point without there being an infinite possibility of points in between. So what the hell sense does that make? It doesn't. That's the point.
That's the mystery. That's The Tao that can be named is not the real Tao. All of this is beyond our human minds. So on some level, there comes a point where it just becomes so murky that we cannot understand. It's impossible for us to understand.
It's called a Taoist conversation.
Yes, exactly. it's irrelevant. It makes no sense.
I call it the one conversation. It's touching down on the thing which matters most when we get to the edge of language.
Which is why, in the end, it becomes about feeling.
Yes.
It's not about thought. It's about feeling. Because it's the only thing that can actually understand this whole process.
Amen. Tell you what, brother. Tell you what, man.
No, but what's interesting, though, is it does mean that all of this stuff is relevant to our daily lives.
Oh,
that
God.
It's not...
What could be more relevant?
Right? It's not this kind of theoretical concept. It's not this abstraction of like, oh, heaven, after we die, we go somewhere else. It's like, no.
I think Christ said a couple things about this, actually. About
kingdom of heaven is here now. Yeah, exactly.
Like, remember, I'll tell you, that's right.
Yeah. See, but that's exactly the point, though. It's like we are interacting right now with heavens, or the heavens, or heaven, whatever you want to call it. It's actually the organizing principle of our existence.
Abraham Hicks alludes to this fact that all consciousness, all of it is all got there. I like to say that all the angels in the angel choir in heaven have their face pressed fully against the glass. Like, what's he going to do next? Yeah. And that kind of gets at this edge of free will too. I mean, what we're doing here, choosing this experience of this, experiencing this, we get into kind of new agey talk of like this third dimension, this density, this matter, this far down the line of contrast between the wholeness. We don't often feel, except when we do, very one with the entire flipping universe, right?
But all these traditions,
that is the nature of it,
point towards that act.
Absolutely. Towards that act and that truth, that being what's actually going on here.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, what's wild is what's wild is that you have things like internal martial arts that are using that path while kicking you in the head and going, oh, this is good and we're... me kicking you in the head is part of this kind of universe knowing itself. I mean, that it's but again,
if God wills it, that was my point. That was my point. Not that it's a cop out, but that there's this mystical sense in which all things are meant to be, including the way that certain. Well, I don't want to say that. We're here to choose the one choice of choosing the one choice of choosing to choose the one choice, which is choosing. Anything that is choosing anything other than that one choice of choosing the choice is not choosing.
Yes, that made a lot of sense.
It does.
No, absolutely. And it's the reason why internal martial arts, and the reason why I've been doing them for so many fucking years, is that it's a rehearsal or it's a representation of daily life. You're making choices about the interactions. So, because we're in tiny fights every moment of your life, right? A conversation is a fight in a sense, right? It's a confrontation. It can
That's
be
one
very
way of
pleasant.
looking at it. Yeah,
it's an interaction, right?
A dance.
It's because even a dance there's a conflict of will, right? So there's a point of friction, right? And that's the definition of all of our lives. We're constantly in friction with everything around us.
The contrast which we came here to experience.
Exactly. So internal martial arts is saying, let's take that to its logical result of, go beyond friction to actually confrontation and train for that. Train the mind and the heart so that confrontation becomes something which is less and less scary.
Yes. Like reverse engineering.
Yeah, and more controlled so that even in the middle of all of this conflict,
it's beautiful.
Right? You remain calm. You have that calm heart, right? Because if you can have that calm heart when somebody is throwing a punch at you, then when it's the little frictions of daily life, that's nothing because you've experienced...
calls it the training ground of petty virtue. Yeah. There's no clean fucking butter knives in the silverware drawer.
It's like, and you lose your shit because there's the cutlery is not clean. Cutlery.
Thank you.
Yeah. But if you've been in a situation where it's like, oh, somebody throws a punch at you and you've dealt with that, then, if the knives are not clean, it's like, who cares? I've been punched in the face. right?
It does, yeah,
You've,
absolutely.
or I mean, you don't even have to be punched in the face, but you've been faced with difficult interactions, and you face them, and you've learned how to remain calm when in those interactions, and that's the benefit of internal martial arts.
It's beautiful.
Or even just martial arts,
Yeah,
which is
we have
why,
martial arts, right.
and that's why in the East they survived because they were connected to this philosophy, right? Whether it's in India or China or Japan, their martial arts were connected to this kind of spiritual development. But in the West, they weren't, which is why we lost them. Because the West,
we lost the martial arts.
Yeah, the West used to have martial arts as developed as the Chinese or the Japanese.
Really?
Absolutely. In medieval time, you had all these martial art training of grappling, striking, and all that kind of stuff, but it was never connected.
Really?
Yeah, it was never connected to a spiritual path. It was never connected to Christianity, basically.
Well, Western alchemy also had to go underground. So,
exactly.
I mean, they use metaphors of, and that's one of the, it's really told well in the story of alchemy, because in Neidan, in internal Taoist alchemy, internal martial arts, that's funny, the synonymousness of martial arts and alchemy in this way. It's an internal transformative spiritual awareness, the birth of the awareness of the essence of your being. The golden elixir is just another name for one's fundamental nature.
That's right.
And so we know that in Neidan, and they made that explicit, and the external alchemy of the chemical nature of alchemy and trying to actually form a little golden pill, is a very different practice, and actually died out.
Yeah,
in favor of the fusion. A few emperors lost their lives from lead poisoning. And you don't want that kind of thing if you're,
no, absolutely. And what's interesting is that the furthest reaches of internal martial arts, or martial arts, because all martial arts essentially end up at the same points, is this negation of the separation between yourself and your opponent. There is no more opponent. There's just the two of you. It's not just two people fighting. It's one thing. So because you become the yin to your opponent's yang, and vice versa, right? So a lot of the training is about getting rid of the ego, of the sense of I and what I want, and instead going, no, what is happening?
What?
There is a push. Yeah. I'm gonna flow with the push, instead of going, no, I want to resist because my ego says I need to. It's like getting rid of the ego. So getting rid of the difference, so that you become one with the energy
becoming yielding with what is. Exactly.
With what is, exactly.
This is why it's sometimes referred to as, or I like to call it, spiritual Aikido.
Yeah. But it's exactly that, because at its root, it's this idea, which is based in the spiritual ideas of separation, of getting rid of the separation, dropping the ego. And again, that's what we never had that in the West, which is why martial arts...
That is so interesting. Yeah. To think that those alchemical spiritual traditions, which had to be cloaked under the veil of this is chemistry, also died out
in the fighting arts in the West. Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's really too bad, because you still have people who do martial arts because they recognize that it's actually really good for them and good for their head.
That's right.
And there's an instinct there.
The personal transformation that you hear.
Yep. And there's an instinct that goes, no, the way out of my own head is actually through the body.
Oh.
Right? But we don't have a framework to describe it. We don't have that spiritual matrix where you can go, oh, I'm doing this because it's the same as this, and these are corresponding practices, and I'm working on my ego, and why is it good to get rid of your ego? We don't have that in the West, which is too bad. So that's why, for me, it's...
We have mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Yeah, exactly. You will be a better worker.
Yes. We have, what is it? Huberman calls it NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. Non-sleep deep rest and mindfulness-based stress reduction. We got it all figured out, everybody. Exactly. I want you to know.
It's also that
we have reached the pinnacle of knowledge.
Yes, that's right. Also, you can be a better worker. You can stay
very much so
at the office longer, not freak out. Yeah. No, that's complete bullshit.
More freak out. That's my vote. More freak out.
Absolutely.
The Taoists were anarchists. The Taoists.
Oh, absolutely.
There was like, hold on now. The extent to which what you understand to be your position of authority is you. Where's this conversation going?
No.
Is informing your ability to see yourself as separate from me and then use power over me. This is not the way of nature.
Yeah, and I don't
This is
accept
not the
it. There's hundreds of stories of Taoist sages being summoned by some king, emperor, count, whatever, and the guy, no. And the emperor's like, what do you mean, no? I'm the emperor. And the Taoist is like, yeah, nah, I'm not interested. It's like, it's like, I'll give you this. It's like, nah, I'll cut off your head. Yeah, okay, I don't care. But yeah, no, I'm not answering your call because I don't accept your authority. Because the ultimate anarchist. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
No, that's what China became. Followed Confucius instead of Lao Tzu, because it would be a country of anarchists, and the empire couldn't allow that. So that's why
they had to. Confucius had to assimilate Lao Tzu in some sense,
yes.
And they had because you see, especially like in Chinese medicine, you see the influence of both Taoism and Confucianism coming together to form this
absolutely
this whole
they had
metaphysical system.
I mean, you can't have an empire full of Taoists. Like, you can't. Because
it's not an empire. There's no such thing. It's
exactly,
an oxymoron.
Exactly. They will all just tell
beautiful.
you to just fuck off.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful sentiment, man. They say, there's this Buddhist expression, right, where they say, if you want a more peaceful world, you need more peaceful nations. If you want more peaceful nations, you need peace in your provinces and states. If you want peace in your provinces and states, you need peace in your cities. If you want peace in your cities, you need peace in your home, in your family. If you want peace in your home and your family, you need peace in yourself. If you want peace in yourself, you need peace in your heart.
Yeah.
That's how to get there. Yeah. There's a paradoxical question I like to ask people. Like, this occurred to me in a conversation with a guy at a bar. And it's funny, I didn't ask him, but it landed on me, and I really wanted to ask him, but I didn't listen to that in that moment. But now I can ask, what's more important? What Chris wants to do, and by wants to do, I mean really wants to do, what's more important? Chris's truest desires in this life, or world peace?
No. They should be the same.
They're the same thing.
Yeah.
So the ultimate activism comes from here first.
Yep. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about Taoism that always struck me, is incredibly optimistic about people.
Absolutely,
the assumption is that everybody's good.
Yeah.
And actually, what this reminds me of, when you look at the world today, and how much effort is put into making sure that you're not at peace. Right? Every news segment, every TV show, every political act is about making sure that you're not at peace.
But people are just turning away from that in droves.
Yes, because it's so bad for you. It's so unhealthy, and it's unhealthy for the planet.
I think the veil's been lifted, and the more people I talk to and have these deep spiritual conversations with, you can smell it, you can feel it, you know something's going down. That the truth that something else is going on here other than what Newtonian mechanics and all this kind of stuff, or organized religion has fed us is the case. The mystical reality of it is awakening in people, and that's not to paint a story of separation. It's not that some people get it and some people don't. The golden elixir is no different than one's fundamental nature. Yeah. It says the golden elixir is just another name for one's fundamental nature. It is neither more present in a sage nor less in a peasant. Right? Yep. It is only for insanity and delusion that we throw it away to no avail. Yeah. So that insanity and delusion is fading away.
Yeah,
it's fading away because we're realizing the insanity and the delusion of these lives that we've chosen.
Yeah, in some ways, I'm going to use strong words here, but it shows kind of the demonic nature of our institutions, that they are on purpose using everything that gets you away from that state of calm. Because
sin, they play into a story of separation. They play into a story of the individual being powerless in any way.
Exactly.
But the very way in which we are most powerful is our divinity, the spiritual nature of what we are.
Yeah.
The ability to listen to that still small voice moves mountains.
Yes. But that's the one thing that we are never told, or we're kept away from by media, government, in our institutions. It's always about...
Doesn't matter. The heart keeps calling.
Oh, exactly. It's part of being human. So it's... Yeah.
That's what we came here to do. And I just had a conversation with this incredible couple in their 80s at Faywood, and we were vibing, and the conversation very quickly turned to, they're in their 80s. They saw it. And I was like, it's 2023. It's a little bit like the 60s happening. Something's moving in the world.
Yeah.
And so be it.
So be it.
Amen, brother. I tell you what.
All right. Have we done it?
I think we've done it, my friend.
All right. I think we're just going to embarrass ourselves if we keep going.